This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Okay, we have a short Sugya today, but this Sugya touches Daf Ayin Daled, as well as the last two blot Ayin Gimel and Ayin Beis. The Gemara in Ayin Daled is dealing with whether a Areil is allowed to eat Meiser Sheni or not. Can an Areil partake of Meiser Sheni? And the Gemara at first wanted to... This was the Shaila on Daf Ayin Gimel that we're still dealing with on Ayin Daled. The Gemara said, Boi minemer of Sheishes on Ayin Gimel Mahu b'Maser, Areil Mahu b'Maser. Do we say, just like we learn out Pesach from Meiser for Aninos, we should learn out Meiser of Pesach for Areilos, or do we not because Pesach is more Chamar? And the Gemara tried to bring a raya from the fact that the Mishnah lists certain commonalities of Truma and Bikurim that don't exist by Meiser. And we know Truma and Bikurim and Areil cannot eat. Now, if a Areil was allowed to eat Meiser, it should say that Truma and Areil cannot eat Truma Bikurim and could eat Meiser. It's mashma that, no, that an Areil cannot eat Meiser, and the Gemara says Ton of a Shiur, and Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, it brought other examples of my Shiur. And the Gemara is discussing whether this Areil could eat Meiser Sheni, and the Gemara quotes another brayso. So this is like a third of the way down on Ayin Daled, that Tful Yaim is Aser b'Truma and is Mutter b'Para u'v'Maser. So the Gemara says if an Areil is Mutter and Meiser, it should say Areil Aser b'Truma u'Mutter b'Para v'Maser. So it must be Areil is Aser b'Maser, because otherwise it should have said Areil is Aser by Truma and Mutter b'Para v'Maser. Must be Areil is Aser b'Meiser. So the Gemara says it's Rabbi Akiva. That Rabbi Akiva says Areil is like a Tameh. Now, if you look at Rashi in Ayin Daled says Tana Dvei Rabbi Akiva, who Rabbi Akiva not only would say an Areil cannot partake of Meiser, Rabbi Akiva would say an Areil cannot partake of a para. Like we learned on Ayin Beis Amud Beis. Remember the Gemara had a Sugya on Ayin Beis Amud Beis regarding whether an Areil could be Mazeh. Rabbi Elazar says Areil shehiza has asik sheira, like a Tful Yaim. And the Gemara said, but Rabbi Akiva, who says Areil is Katame, he would say that an Areil cannot be Mazeh. So Rashi's Shita is like this. Rashi's Shita is that according to Rabbi Akiva, that Areil is like Tameh, an Areil cannot partake of Meiser Sheni, and an Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of the Paraduma. Mashein Kain, Rabbi Elazar, who argues on Rabbi Akiva, and he does not say Areil Katame. Now Rabbi Elazar is in the very beginning of Paraka Areil. On Daf Ayin Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, how do we know an Areil can eat Truma? So Rabbi Elazar learns it out from Toisha v'Sacher. It says Toisha v'Sacher by Pesach, it says Toisha v'Sacher by Truma. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, Ishis, l'Rabbis ha'Areil Katame. So according to Rabbi Elazar, then Areil is not like a Tameh, and Areil could sprinkle a Paraduma, and Areil could eat Meiser Sheni. According to Rabbi Akiva, an Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of the Paraduma. According to Rashi, right? Again, Rashi says an Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma according to Rabbi Akiva, and cannot eat Meiser Sheni. So we have a very interesting group of psakim in the Rambam. Let's see if we could find it here. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? You see this Rambam here? The Rambam is in Tahara Hilchos Paraduma. See if we can make it bigger. The Rambam says, Hakol ksherim lahazer is chutz me'isha v'tumtum ma'androgenes. V'cher yishoyt v'katan she'en by das. Avakatan she'esh by das kosher lahazos. V'ha'arel kosher lahazos she'en ha'arel tameh. The Rambam says an Areil could sprinkle. Now who does that go like? Rashi learns on Daf Ayin Daled that according to Rabbi Akiva that Areil is katame, and Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of paraduma. So the Rambam is not paskening like Rabbi Akiva, is he? Certainly it doesn't seem that way. So what would you think the Rambam would pasken by Hilchos Maser Sheni? Could an Areil eat Maser Sheni? Well, the Rambam says an Areil is not like a Tameh, so an Areil should be allowed to eat Maser Sheni. Says the Rambam in Hilchos Maser Sheni, Perek Gimel Halchadad, Ha'Areil Kitameh, V'Macha Maser Sheni Loike. So by Hilchos Paraduma, the Rambam says an Areil is allowed to sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma. And by Hilchos Maser Sheni, the Rambam says an Areil is not allowed to eat Maser Sheni. Stira in the Rambam between Hilchos Paraduma and Hilchos Maser Sheni. You know who asked this question? I can't believe it. I never saw this in my life. The Marsha. I've never seen the Marsha ask a stira in the Rambam. The Marsha is a perush on Rashi and Tosfos. It's a Meneu Bey perush. For the Marsha to ask a stira in Rambams, I'm not familiar that he does that. And the Marsha says, Midivrei HaRambam nira, Deloy marbinon hacha Areil ketame elo lesser maser, veloy la'isrei b'para. The Rambam agrees to Rabbi Akiva. The Rambam holds Areil is ketame. Now one more time. If you look, let's look a few lines before. Rashi on Daf Ayin Dalet says that if you hold like Rabbi Akiva, a Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma. The Marsha says, "V'yeshu daktik l'may demasik umuki braysa Rabbi Akiva." According to the Gemara's conclusion, that the braysa is going like Rabbi Akiva, and we include Areil ketame, and therefore, like Rashi says, an Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma. So I'm just pointing out the Marsha observes that Rashi holds that if we go like Rabbi Akiva, then an Areil cannot sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma. But then the Marsha says, "Avomidivei harambam nire deloy marbinon hacha Areil katameh." From the Rambam, it appears we're not marbe Areil katameh, elo le'eser b'maser, only to aser maser v'loy le'eser b'para, not to aser the para. Shehu pasak b'ilchos maser shein per gimel ha'Areil aser b'maser. The Rambam paskins in Hilchos Maser Sheni that Areil is Asur b'Maser, and Hilchos Paraduma he paskins in Areil is kosher lahazois. Now, if the Rambam says an Areil could sprinkle v'haya nira l'chayra the taimai shehu soivar the ein Areil ketame. Apparently, if the Rambam holds an Areil could sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma, and Areil's not like a tamei ulahachi kosher b'para ela de b'maiser asur. So the question is, so why would the Rambam say that by Hilchos Maser Areil cannot eat? Maybe Mishum de Rabbi Yossi de Yalef mimenu b'Pesach. Oh, excuse me, not Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak towards the end of Ayin Dalet Amud Aleph, Rabbi Yitzchak says Areil Asur b'Maiser. Why? We learn out from the Pesach, so it's a very specific. In other words, here's one way to answer the stira in the Rambam. The Rambam holds that an Areil is allowed to sprinkle the ashes of Paraduma, because the Rambam doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva, Areil is not like a tameh. So why does the Rambam say an Areil is allowed to eat Maser Sheni, is not allowed to eat Maser Sheni? Because we have an Ayin Dalid, the drasha of Rabbi Yitzchak, that we learn now mimenu from Pesach. And that's only Maser Sheni to Pesach, but that would not apply and has no relevance to Paraduma. The only thing is, the Marsha says, this is not a good answer for the Rambam because the Rambam's not mashma that way. The Rambam's mashma, the reason why an Areil can't eat Maser Sheni is because he's Areil Ketame, not because of Gzer Shav of Mimenu. L'chein nira, therefore the Marsha says, Shetamoy, the reason for the Rambam, Devadeh marbina Areil Ketame, we definitely include Areil Ketame. Umishamachi Asur b'Maser, that's why an Areil can't have Meiser. But you know why a Paraduma an Areil could partake of? Because of the Kavachoymer of Rabbi Eliezer. And we learned in a brisa like him. Look on Ayin Beis Amud Beis. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Areil shehizaz asik sheira. We make a din, we can make a kavah chomer from tful yaim. Ma tful yaim asur b'negia. The truma, tful yaim cannot touch truma. But tful yaim is allowed to sprinkle ashes of paraduma. Areil, who's allowed to touch truma, certainly you're allowed to, you're mutter b'para. So the Marsha says that really the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Akiva, and therefore an Areil cannot eat Meiser Sheni, an Areil katame. Why can an Areil sprinkle the ashes of paraduma? Kavachomer from Tvol Yaim. What's the Kavachomer? That if an Areil could touch Truma, certainly a Tvol Yaim cannot touch Truma, but he's allowed to sprinkle paraduma. An Areil who could touch Truma, certainly he should be able to sprinkle the ashes of paraduma. So even though Areil is katame, but he's allowed to sprinkle the ashes of paraduma, kavachomer from Tvol Yaim. Tvol Yaim can't touch Truma. Areil could touch Truma. Now, I don't understand the Marsha for the life of me. Are you following this? Because this is basically a review of Paraka Areil. Sometimes when you learn sometimes when you learn Iyun, it helps your Bekiyas. So, again, the Marsha is saying, to answer the Rambam, that the Rambam, you could say that the Rambam doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva. Maser Sheni is Aser because of Mimenu Mimanu, and Para is Mutter because there's no Mimenu Mimenu. But Marsha says, the Rambam says, Areil Katame. That's mashma, he holds like Rabbi Akiva. So then why is it Mutter B'Para? Because of the Kavah Chomer. If I'm not mistaken though, if you hold like Rabbi Akiva, there's no Kavah Chomer. Because the whole Kavah Chomer is based on the fact that if an Areil could touch Truma, certainly, right, Tvul Yaim can't touch Truma, it could sprinkle the ashes of paraduma. Areil, who could touch Truma, certainly it could sprinkle the ashes. But if you hold Areil Katame, and Areil can't touch Truma. I believe according to Rabbi Akiva there is no Kavah Chomer. So I'm not sure what the Marsha is saying. Mishum Kavah Chomer, the Kamer of Lezel Elvid, and we learned in a brisa like him. Tanya Nami Achi, Areil Shizaz Asik Sheira. Mishum Hachi Asr B'Meiser Ela de Para Mutter Mishum Kavah Chomer. And says the Marsha, when we say over here, this Tana is Rabbi Akiva, it's only Rabbi Akiva that it's Asr B'Areil, but not that it's Asr B'Para. I really don't get this. Bays and Mem. What's this Bays going on? Karni Re'im? Nichtav v'tzidoi tzarachin v'tzidoi al ayin gimel mavor der v'kiva asar Areil b'para. The Karni Re'im asks that from the Sugya earlier on ayin gimel, it's Masha v'kiva holds it's Areil as asar b'para. What does that mean? Oh, ayin beis amad beis. I would assume that's what the Karni Re'im is asking on the Marsha. Didn't the Aruch LaNer say on Ayin Beis Amid Beis that according to Rabbi Akiva there's no Kavah Chomer? Okay, so the Marsha seems to be saying that Rabbi Akiva, that the Rambam Paschal is like Rabbi Akiva, and Paraduma is mutter because of the Kavah Chomer. I want to show you the Aruch HaShulchan's approach over here. Let me see if I could find the Lechem Mishnah for a minute on the Rambam. Here, look in the Aruch HaShulchan. This is a very interesting approach. Hilchos Truma. Kohen Areil she'eino rotze lomel es atzmai. Kohen Areil doesn't want to do mila. Oishamesu achav machmas mila ve'eni yachal lomel es atzmai. Mnisgan Zhoz also achav b'truma ketame. V'yalef la Rabbi Eliezer b'reish perka Areil mi Pesach. Look at this lashon of the Aruch HaShulchan. An Areil cannot eat truma like a tameh. And where do we learn this from? From Gzer Shavar, from Pesach. Wait a second. If we're learning out from the Karim Pesach, it's not because Areil's Katame, it's because we learn out from the Karim Pesach. The Toisha V'Sacher, Shenemar B'Shneim, Ma Pesach Areil Aser Boy, Av Trumakein. Rabbi Kiva Darshan Zim Me'ishish, D'chsev Gabei Tmeim, L'Rabbis Areil. Uv'chol Duchta Mashra Rabbi Kiva Areil Katame, and that's what the Rambam says, Perikil Ma'aser Sheni. Now the Rambam Perik Zayin and Din Yud Kasav Koyin Areil Aser Lecho B'Truma Midin Torah Sharei Nemar Toish V'Sachar B'Truma V'Nemar Toish V'Sachar B'Pesach Ma Toish V'Sachar B'Pesach Areil Aser B'Y Af Toish V'Sachar B'Truma Areil Aser B'Y. So does that mean the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Eliezer? Ein Kavanasa Lifsek Rabbi Eliezer. Ela Dinokad Hadrasha Pshuta Tfei. The Rambam, by citing the drush of Toisha V'Sacher Lo Yoicha B'Y, he does not mean to paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. He's just saying the simple drasha, even though we don't really paskin that way. Where would this be? We don't have the Rambam here in Hilchos Truma. Here, look at this Rambam. Koyin Areil Aser Lecho B'Truma Midin Torah Shenemar Toisha V'Sacher B'Truma V'Nemar Toisha V'Sacher B'Pesach. So the Rambam here seems to be saying what like the Marsha thought originally, that Areil is not Ketame. And that's why in Areil is allowed to sprinkle the Paraduma. And Meiser is Aser because we learn out Mimenu Pesach. And Truma is Aser because we learn out Toishav V'Sacher Mi Pesach. That's what the Rambam seems to be saying in Hilchos Trumais. Here the Rambam says in Hilchos Chagiga, Noshim Avadim Peturim Min Harakiah, V'chol Ha'anoshim Chayavim B'Riyah. Women Avadim are patur from Riyah, and all men are chayavim Riyah except for Cheresh, Ilaim, Shoita, V'Katan. V'tamei v'Areil. The Rambam greets together Tamei and Areil. Then the Rambam says, "Uchvar bi'arnu b'hilchos bias hamikdash she'ena tamei roi lebia v'chein ha'Areil ma'os ketamei." And Areil is disgusting like a tamei. Let's see how the Lechem Mishnah asked the question. Take a look over here. This is the Rambam in Hilchos Karim Pesach, Parak Tes. The Parak HaAreil, if fligu Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Eliezer nafka the Areil eno oichel b'truma migzer shava toisha v'sacher, namar toisha v'sacher Pesach, and it's extra. It says toisha v'sacher b'truma mal halon Areil aser avkan Areil aser, and Rabbi Kiva nafka ishish l'rabbis Areil katamei. The Gemara says, what does Rabbi Kiva do with toisha v'sacher? He uses it for whatever his reasons are. So, in Parak Zayin and Hilchos Chumash, the Rambam passes like Rabbi Eliezer. Again, which Aruch HaShulchan says, it doesn't mean he passes like Rabbi Eliezer, he's just picking the easier drasha to say. Because he says, Koyin Areil, Aser Lecho Truma, Midin Torah, Sharei Nemar, Toisha V'Sacher B'Truma, V'Nemar Toisha V'Sacher B'Pesach. So the Rambam Hilchos Chumash is paskins like Rabbi Eliezer. So the Lechem Mishnah says, first of all, how could you paskin like Rabbi Eliezer? v'makam Rabbi Akiva. We know halacha Rabbi Akiva mechaveroi. So again, to that the Aruch HaShulchan would say, sometimes the Rambam quotes a drasha, but that he's just quoting a convenient way to say it. And furthermore, v'oid, Miu, he says, for this, Yeshar in the Pasuk in Mishum Deshaman Daf Ayin Bezim is Amar Rabbi Lazar Areil Shiz Azasa Kshera. An Areil that sprinkles its kosher, and the Gemara asks from a Bryce, and it says, that's Rabbi Akiva. But Rabbi Lazar doesn't hold like him, so therefore the Rambam is paskening like Rabbi Eliezer. So basically, there are many Rambams regarding whether Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Akiva. Just to summarize, the Rambam in Hilchos Trumos paskins like Rabbi Eliezer, that we learn out from Tosha v'Sachir. The Rambam in Hilchos Maser Sheni paskins like Rabbi Akiva, Areil Ketame Macha Maser Sheni loike, and the Rambam in Hilchos Paraduma paskins like Rabbi Eliezer that ain't Areil Ketame, and Areil is allowed to be Mazeh. So the simple way to read it is the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Eliezer, and the reason why he can't eat Maser Sheni is not because of Areil Ketame, but because of Rabbi Yitzchak that we learn Mimenu. And the Marsha doesn't like that. The Marsha feels that Smasha, the Rambam holds Areil's Ketame, and Paraduma ain't Areil Ketame because we have a Kavachoymer. Okay, Rabbi said, that's what I got for you today. Hope everybody has an amazing day. Bracha v'hatzlacha. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.